pleased to welcome everyone here today for this hearing on the fiscal year 2016 budget request for science and technology programs within the Department of Defense. We are all aware of the intense downward budget pressure the Department is under these days in the ever-growing universe of threats that we are forced to deal with. Science and technology programs are part of the modernization investments that keep the Department prepared and ready to deal with those threats and ensure that when we send our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines into harm's way, we make sure they are never in a fair fight because technology is on their side. But defense sequestration jeopardizes that technological superiority and our ability to outmatch and outclass potential adversaries. I agree we cannot ignore today's concerns, including readiness, equipment recapitalization, and the health and welfare of our service members, nor can we expect to raid our modernization accounts to pay those bills. That's like taking money from the retirement accounts to pay the mortgage today. There are short-term rewards, but you create an even bigger problem down the line. I say that to make the point we understand why science and technology is important should be protected, but also recognize that in this budget environment, we will continue to be under pressure. The fiscal year 2016 budget request for science and technology is seeing a modest increase, but that request was also well above the budget cap set by defense sequestration. If we have to remain at sequestration levels, I fear the adverse impact that will have on our science and technology programs. Not only will we have to defer sought-after and important programs, but we'll continue to defer the hiring of needed scientists and engineers, defer investments in necessary equipment, and defer building or upgrading facilities that support world-class research and world-class researchers. I know that I've painted a bleak picture, but it is only to punctuate how important we think science and technology is to our national security and the defense of our great nation. Every time we push off research one more year, we give our adversaries another year to catch up with us. With that, I would like to welcome our distinguished panel of witnesses for their thoughts on this topic. Mr. Alan Schaefer, Principal Deputy to the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Research and Engineering, Ms. Mary Miller, Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Army for Research and Technology, Rear Admiral Matt Winter, United States Navy, Chief of Naval Research, Dr. David Walker, Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Air Force for Science, Technology, and Engineering, Dr. Arthi Prabhakar, the Director of the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA. I'd like to turn now to our ranking member who will be here any moment, and he's on the way, and his staff is very trustworthy, and they've promised me he's on the way. But Mr. Langeman should be here any time, but he has indicated to proceed, and we shall, because of the voting schedule that we may be facing today. I'd like to remind our witnesses that your written statements will be submitted for the record, so we ask that each of you summarize your comments to 5 minutes or less. Mr. Schaefer will begin with you, and we look forward to your opening statement. Before we do, though, I understand that you will be retiring from government service at the end of May to take a position as the Chief Scientist of the NATO Science and Technology Organization. What a great honor. You've been a good friend of this committee, and so I'd like to thank you for your many years of service in the Air Force, your public service within the department, and we wish you and your family best wishes in the future. Godspeed.
Thank you very much, sir. It has been a pleasure to serve, and I will continue to serve in the NATO capacity. Chairman Wilson and committee members, I'm proud to be here once again to represent the 100,000 plus scientists and engineers in the Department of Defense. Although this is a community that has been challenged in many ways over the last several years, they continue to perform remarkably well. I want to start with a somewhat unusual story and share with you the value of long-term science and technology. I was recently briefed about the progress made in combat casualty care. In Iraq and Afghanistan, from 2005 to 2013, the average severity of injuries to our young forces increased by 25%, but the fatality rate was cut in half. We contend the decline in fatality rate is due in part to the long-term advances and delivery from the medical science and technology community, which includes contributions from everyone at this table. While our S&T community has performed very well in the recent past, the national security environment is changing in fundamental ways. For the first time in several decades, we are seeing an erosion of our technologically based military advantage. Secretary Ash Carter addressed this during his fiscal year 2016 budget posture, when he said, "For decades, U.S. global power projection has relied on the ships, planes, submarines, bases, aircraft carriers, satellites, networks, and other advanced capabilities that comprise our military's unrivaled technological edge. But that superiority is being challenged in unprecedented ways. Advanced military technologies, from rockets and drones to chemical and biological capabilities, have found their way into the arsenals of both non-state actors as well as previously less capable militaries, and other nations, among them Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea, have been pursuing long-term comprehensive military modernization programs to close the technology gap that has long existed between them and the United States." Dr. Carter also addressed the impact of the sequester, stating a return to sequestration in fiscal year 2016 would affect all aspects of the Department, but not all equally. Approximately half of the cuts would have to come from the Department's modernization accounts, undermining our efforts to secure technological superiority for U.S. forces in future conflicts. Sequestration would put a hold on critical programs like our Aerospace Innovation Initiative, the Next Generation Adaptive Engine, the Ground-Based Interceptor Missile Defense Kill Vehicle redesign, and several space control efforts. As you noted, the 2016 budget request for science and technology increases to $12.3 billion. We have focused on S&T investments in advanced technology development to provide more prototypes and demonstrations. Our recent emphasis in demonstrations is now producing results across the DOD. I will highlight just a few of our noteworthy demonstration programs. My Emerging Capabilities and Prototype Office has started several joint capability technology demonstrations for communications and imagery from small, tactically relevant satellites. The Space and Missile Defense Command nanosatellite program, known as SNAP, is a low Earth orbit nanosatellite that will provide assured, beyond line-of-sight communication, enabling mission command on the move. 3 SNAP satellites were delivered this March, with a launch date scheduled for August 2015. The Kestrel I is a 25-kilogram satellite that provides good enough 1.5-meter visible imagery for less than $1.5 million. Both imagery tasking and delivery is controlled directly by battlefield commanders, and this provides a real augmentation to our tactical ISR capability. Kestrel I will launch this December. The Army is developing a high-energy laser mobile demonstrator to demonstrate low-cost capability for counter-rockets, artillery, and mortar. In 2014, the Army tested this system twice and successfully engaged roughly 90% of the targets. We are now on a path for protective lasers to be fielded in the Army's Indirect Fire Protection Capabilities Increment 2. The Navy's innovative naval prototype laser weapon system is another solid-state laser under development. The Navy demonstration uses a fiber laser as compared to the Army's heat capacity laser. The system was demonstrated aboard the USS Ponce in 2014 and is moving forward to its next set of field demonstrations. Finally, the Air Force's Adaptive Engine program is a new architecture offering roughly 25% reduction in specific fuel consumption. Since 2007, we have moved from the Adaptive Versatile Engine Technology Advent program to the Adaptive Engine Technology Demonstration And in 2016, we will commence with the Adaptive Engine Transition Program, which is out of S&T, but a 6-4 program moving towards Engineering, Manufacturing, Development Program of Record early next decade. A frequent criticism of the S&T program is that there is duplication among the services. I don't believe that this is a pervasive problem. But in 2013, we reinstated Reliance 21, a process to allow the services and defense agencies looking across all projects to optimize their output. Under Reliance 21, we've divided the overall S&T program into 17 communities of interest, and they are developing integrated science and technology roadmaps or plans. These COIs are adjusting programs at the execution level. This is indeed an interesting time for DoD science and technology, with operational challenges increasing at a time when budgets are flat or declining. Meeting the national security needs requires we develop and adopt a multifaceted strategy. This strategy is in place. I am proud of the professionals in the entire R&E enterprise and look forward to continued achievements from our dedicated workforce. I also very much value working together with each of these science and technology executives to deliver the most that we can from the overall Department of Defense. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schaefer. Ms. Miller.
Chairman Wilson, Ranking Member Langevin, and distinguished members of the subcommittee, thank you for this opportunity to discuss the Army's Science and Technology Program for fiscal year 2016. I came before this committee last year and spoke to the difficult choices that the Army faced, balancing force structure, operational readiness, and modernization. This continues to be a significant challenge. The velocity of instability around the world has increased. The Army is now operating on multiple continents simultaneously in ways unforeseen just a year ago. Our adversaries continue to invest in technology to counter or evade our strengths. And what used to take our enemies months and years to disrupt may now take only days. The Army has developed a new Army operational concept, Win in a Complex World, to address this new environment. Within the Army, however, the research, development, and acquisition accounts are 34% less in fiscal year 16 than we projected just 4 short years ago, adding to this challenge. Despite this dramatic reduction in our modernization accounts, the Army leadership has continued to protect the science and technology investment as the key to the Army of the future. The S&T enterprise is committed to providing soldiers with the technology to win. The contributions from the almost 12,000 scientists and engineers that work within the S&T enterprise span the gamut from fixing immediate problems to forecasting for the future. I'd like to take this opportunity to highlight a few of these areas. The Army relies on our science and technology enterprise to rapidly solve current problems for our troops in the field. Problems such as redesigning body armor to better fit female soldiers in Afghanistan. These soldiers were faced with armor that caused abrasions, restricted their movement, and even impacted their ability to correctly seat their rifles on their shoulder when shooting. The S&T community developed an armor system designed to fit smaller torsos, which is now becoming the new standard for female soldiers today. We are also called upon to improve our current system capability. Efforts like the Advanced Affordable Turbine Engine, now the Improved Turbine Engine Program of Record, will provide Apache and Black Hawk critically needed operational improvement in both hot and high altitude conditions. We also drive down risk for emerging programs of record by bringing forward new capabilities that are not only technologically achievable but also affordable. Our efforts with the 3rd-gen FLIR, forward-looking infrared, are a great example of where we developed a technical solution that gave us increased range for both detection and ID, range that exceeds that of our enemy, while investing in the manufacturability of this system to provide an unprecedented, affordable, all-weather capability that recently transitioned into the iFLIR program of record. Before a program even gets started, however, S&T provides the technical understanding of the art of the possible, ensuring our requirements are both achievable and affordable. Our joint multi-role technology demonstrator effort will produce 2 flight demonstrators in FY17 to inform affordable requirements for the Department of Defense's next-generation rotorcraft. The future vertical lift planned program of record is envisioned to meet 70% of the current DOD rotorcraft needs, and the JMR Tech Demo is ensuring that we get these requirements right. With an increasingly adaptive enemy, one who has watched how the U.S. fights for the past 13 years, it is imperative for us to understand our own technology and system vulnerabilities, those aspects that could be exploited and used against us. Our Army Science and Technology enterprise has embraced this challenge as well. A key aspect of this initiative is red teaming, challenging our systems with an emulated enemy, one who can use innovative and adaptive methods to disrupt our planned capability. These efforts have the potential for significant cost savings as vulnerabilities are mitigated before system designs are finalized and systems are fielded. We also work to understand the global technology environment by establishing tighter connections to each other through Reliance 21 that you just heard about, through increasing our engagement with the intelligence community, and accessing non-traditional thinkers through our technology wargaming focused on what could be possible in the 2030 to 2040 timeframe. Finally, we continue to seek and develop new and game-changing technologies for the future. For instance, our Materials by Design basic research effort will provide the capability to select and create material properties and responses, essentially building new materials from the atom up. Of course, none of this would be possible without the scientists and engineers that make up the Army S&T enterprise. I am honored to represent the men and women who apply their expertise on a daily basis to creatively solve difficult national security challenges and provide the flexibility and agility to respond to the many challenges that the Army will face. Our focus remains on our soldiers. We consistently seek new avenues to increase the soldiers' capability and ensure their technological superiority today, tomorrow, and decades from now. Thank you again for all that you do to support our soldiers.
Thank you very much, Ms. Miller. We now proceed to Admiral Winter.
Good morning, Chairman Wilson and Ranking Member Langevin, and distinguished members of the subcommittee. As previously mentioned, I'm Rear Admiral Matt Winter, the new Chief of Naval Research, and it's an honor to address you all and discuss our Department of Navy Science and Technology Investment Strategy, which I'll add is fully supported by the President's FY16 budget request. Though I've only been the CNR for less than 90 days, I have had years of experience in the science and technology arena as a producer and as a consumer. As a scientist, a computer scientist, and a mechanical engineer by trade, as a combat A6 intruder bombardier navigator, and as a major weapons program manager, also a Naval Warfare Center commander at China Lake and Point Mugu, and most recently as our PEO for unmanned aviation and strike weapons. With that experience, I come to the table in this job with a unique perspective that understands explicitly how our S&T investments enable our workforce to discover, develop, and deliver the breakthrough technologies to support our sailors and Marines, which is absolutely essential. They operate in what I refer to as our three fleets, the current fleet underway, the fleet under development, and our future fleet. It's absolutely imperative that we have a strategy that links these three fleets together fiscally, operationally, and technically. We recently released our Department of Navy updated S&T strategy that does just that. It focuses our efforts into 9 relevant game-changing research areas to provide that clarity to the research enterprise and the broader S&T community that includes our academia and our small business industry partners. Additionally, the strategy defines our workforce engagement and development initiatives to build a strong, knowledgeable workforce based on the fundamentals of STEM, ensuring that we have the relevant intellectual capital to solve our hardest problems. This strategy guides our planning, execution, and decision-making to ensure we have the right people with the right skills and the right jobs, and the organizational alignment to ensure efficient execution, communications, and decisive leadership. To that point, I'm a goal-oriented leader. I hate inefficiencies. I'm executing our S&T mission with the required rigor and accountability so our warfighter maintains that decisive technological advantage to fight the fight and keep the peace. But as equally important, we need our scientists and engineers to maintain the decisive technological advantage in our laboratories. In the 85 days I've been on this job, I'm coming to realize what an honor and privilege it is to lead this incredible team of over 4,000 technical professionals in the Naval S&T community across our naval research enterprise and those embedded with our academia and industry partners. By all measures, and since I'm an engineer, I like to measure things, the work they are engaged in is some of the most influential and game-changing technology research in the department and albeit around the globe. For example, the demonstrated and revolutionary electromagnetic railgun, our breakthrough game-changing forward-deployed laser cannons that's been mentioned previously, the medical research focused on traumatic brain injury solutions, advanced materials research, synthetic biology, advanced algorithmic autonomous behavior, electromagnetic warfare, it goes on and on. My scientists are making contributions that are making marked differences, not only to our warfighters, which is important, but to our Navy and Marine Corps in this great country. How do I come to that conclusion? As an engineer, and I like to measure things, but I like metrics. We've got to be able to measure things and show progress. Our S&T domain, though, really is a squishy area of basic and applied research with flubber and flux capacitors. Hard to put metrics to those types of investments. So how do we do that? Some would say it's transition of S&T products to get to our warfighters. That's true, but I don't think that's the complete answer. I think we need to look at all of the spectrum of S&T transition. I can point to our Department of Navy S&T metrics that show 87% of our S&T products transition into acquisition, and the majority of those transition to the warfighter's hands. That's not trivial, and that's a good success rate. But there's 13%, and those will be looked at as failures. I say it's different. I say that gives us latent benefit. That 13% provides new knowledge that's never been known before. It allows us to populate the intellectual capital to solve hard problems, manifest into over 60 Nobel Prize winners. We also have 300-plus patents a year in the Department of the Navy that make sure we husband our intellectual capital and continue to get return on investment. And we also transition technologies to the shelf. They're on the shelf so that when an emerging requirement manifests itself, we have a ready-to-go solution to transition. So that's a transition, latent transition activity as well. The problem I see as we bring that together is the valley of death is more of a moat, and it's a bridge, and it's something that we need to continue to work through together. To that end, it is imperative that we leave nothing to waste. When you visit our Navy and Marine Corps, everything you see originated at some level with S&T. Everything from old Ironsides to the first radars, from nuclear propulsion to our biofuel alternatives, from the Sidewinder missile to our GPS capabilities and railgun and lasers, all have the origins within the Naval Research S&T domain, and we're proud of that. These are relevant technological successes. Some are old, some are new, but they are a true cumulative impact from discovery and invention to application and experimentation to demonstration and fielding. They work, and our naval scientists, along with our small business industry partners and our academia university colleagues here and around the globe, make it happen. I invite you and your staffs to come join us and observe firsthand in our Navy warfare centers and our labs the technologies and the accomplishments that our scientists are executing. We will continue to pursue our S&T efforts with innovative research and disruptive thinking, always trying to make existing systems more effective and affordable. That's very important. And in doing so, we remain aligned to our senior leadership. The CNO and Commandant's recently released cooperative strategy for the 21st century sea power is underpinned by this S&T strategy. We can't afford to do business as usual. Just can't do that. And we can't wish away the technological advantages of emergent global actors that are challenging our warfighting supremacy. The CNO's strategy provides us the framework to think and act differently, and we are. We must be committed as a country to pursuing the technological solutions for tomorrow, today. It is essential to tie that technical to the tactical to the strategic. And we in the Navy and the Marine Corps are committed to ensuring our S&T resources that you and your congressional colleagues provide us gets the most bang for the buck by giving our sailors and Marines that technological advantage on the battlefield. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your time and your continued support of our S&T efforts, and I look forward to taking your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Admiral Winter. We now proceed to Dr. Walker.
Thank you, Chairman Wilson, Ranking Member Langevin, and members of the subcommittee. I'm pleased to have the opportunity to provide testimony on the Air Force's FY16 Science and Technology program. This has been an exceptional year for science and technology in the United States Air Force. Last summer, our Secretary-in-Chief published a new America's Air Force, A Call to the Future, a 30-year strategy for the Air Force, which really highlights science and technology and how it's required to achieve the strategic goals that they have set forward. Our FY16's President's budget request is an increase of 14% over our previous request at a $2.4 billion level. The Air Force leadership recognizes the excellent work that S&T has done in the past and recognizes the need for S&T to achieve the future they want. In characterizing our S&T program, Major General Mazziallo, the commander of the Air Force Research Lab, has put it in 3 R's: responsive, relevant, and revolutionary. The responsive piece is, how do you be responsive to the warfighter's need in the field today? An excellent example of this is Air Force S&T provided a capability to the Special Operations troops operating in Afghanistan by integrating a sensor payload onto a tactically remote piloted vehicle that provided a unique and unprecedented capability for identifying IEDs, weapons caches, and enemy, and has resulted in significant support within the theater. On the revolutionary front, the adaptive engine technology that Mr. Schaefer addressed earlier is one of the great revolutions coming out that will really change warfighting by providing significant fuel efficiency and in addition to greater thrust out of the existing family of fighter engines. This has grown out of an Advent program, our first program, which was pure S&T. That program completed last summer and has proven a greater than 20% savings in fuel just from an S&T large engine buildup that we ran with General Electric. The follow-on to this is the Advanced Engine Technology Development Program, which is ongoing this year and next year, which will continue to move forward with this technology. And then as part of the Aerospace Innovation Initiative under the Defense Innovation Initiative, we have the follow-on program, which is the Advanced Engine Transition Program. These really promise to bring this technology not only through the S&T, but on forward into actual prototyping to prove that this technology in a full-up flight-size engine really works. The one problem, of course, is under the BCA that the AETP program, the follow-on program, is still above the BCA levels. Another revolutionary area we're working is in nanotechnology. One of the game changers that we're working right now is in flexible wearable sensors. The ability to put a Band-Aid-like patch onto an individual and be able to detect fatigue, cognition, their performance indicators by pulling biomarkers through the skin. This is enabled by the nano printing of nanoparticle inks onto these markers and actually building up smart electronics into a Band-Aid-like flexible electronic patch. It has great future not only for the Air Force and how we use it, but all the services and for the medical industry as a whole. So it's tremendous capability that we're working. We are also addressing relevant warfighter needs. This is a problem that as you work in the midterm requirements, near and midterm requirements, how do we make sure that what we're doing in Air Force technology is really supporting what the warfighter needs? A good example of this, in working with the Air Combat Command and their desire to go after hard and deeply buried targets with existing capability on existing airplane platforms, we need to have smaller, more compact systems. So the high-velocity penetrating weapon was a program that we put together to do this. It's been very successful and now has transitioned that technology into the follow-on program that ACC is now looking at in their AOA. We also, last July, launched the ANGELS, or the Automated Navigation and Guidance Experience for Local Space, which is really focused on how do we do geosynchronous space situational awareness, which requires somewhat of an autonomous capability. So the ability to detect, track, and characterize space objects on geosynchronous is really moving us forward in our capability for the space situational awareness of the future. To do this, we really have to have a talented workforce. We've taken advantage of the new authorities that have been given to us by the HASC and the SASC. In addition, we've built a strategic plan both for building our engineering workforce, but also for helping build the STEM workforce across the Air Force as a whole, really trying to build the STEM ambassadorship of the Air Force across the nation to develop the talent that we need. In closing, the Air Force 2016 President's Budget really requests the science and technology to make sure that we can remain responsive, revolutionary, and relevant in the future. On behalf of the scientists and the engineers of the Air Force S&T enterprise, I want to thank you for your continued support of our S&T program and look forward to any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Walker. We now proceed to Dr. Prabhakar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Langevin, members of the subcommittee. It's great to be here with my colleagues, and I appreciate the chance to talk with you today. DARPA is part of this Defense Department science and technology community. We are also part of the larger national and global technology ecosystem. But within those communities, DARPA has one particular role, and that is to make the pivotal early investments in new technologies that show what's possible so that we can take huge strides forward in our national security capabilities. And I'll just share with you this morning a couple of brief examples that I hope will bring that mission to life. One is some of our work that is being put to work in one of today's challenges, namely the fight against ISIL. This program that these tools derive from is called MEMEX. MEMEX set out to build some software tools that allow for a very different kind of search through public websites, deep domain-specific search. So what that means is that a user using these tools, it lets them do two new things. One is to see websites out beyond those that are indexed by commercial search engines like Google or Bing, public websites, but those that aren't really reached by these commercial search engines. And then secondly, this tool automatically maps patterns and linkages, relationships across vast numbers of websites, very enabling, powerful technology for analysts. These technologies, these tools have already been used by the law enforcement community in some work in the arena of human trafficking that has led to indictments and at least one conviction. Today, the same tools are in operational use to understand linkages among ISIL websites as well. A second very different example is about driving U.S. technological superiority so that we can deter or defeat a sophisticated peer adversary. And, you know, I think we all know that ever since radar helped win the Battle of Britain, we've all understood that controlling the electromagnetic spectrum is foundational to warfighting. And in fact, today, U.S. military RF arrays are the envy of the world. That is not by accident. It is because of the joint investments in S&T across all of our activities here represented at the table. And I think that's a tremendous advantage that we have, but it's also the case that the rest of the world doesn't stand still. And so today we see other capabilities developing around the world that put our advantage at risk. So today what that translates to is that in a highly contested environment against a sophisticated adversary, they will now have the ability to jam our systems, essentially rendering our forces blind in the heat of battle. So one of the efforts that's underway at DARPA today in close partnership with our service colleagues is really to create the next generation of capability for controlling the electromagnetic spectrum. This is new work at the level of devices, new systems architectures, new algorithms, new manufacturing technologies, all of which together I think can give us a chance to move into a future, not just a future where we can operate in the electromagnetic spectrum, but a future where we can control the electromagnetic spectrum in real time in the battle space. And I think giving us that, the kind of substantial advantage that all of our investments are really about. So those are just a couple of examples across a much wider portfolio at DARPA. You have our new report that just came out that offers a broader perspective across the portfolio. I'm happy to talk about any of that. But I also want to take a couple of minutes and talk with you about what it takes for us to deliver on our mission. Your support in so many ways across many years has been essential to that. First and foremost is our people. We have had a flexible hiring authority that this committee helped create a number of years ago. Last year in legislation, you allowed us to use more of our positions within our fixed headcount using this flexible technique. And this hiring authority is just essential for everything that we do at DARPA. It lets us get access to the kind of people who have the potential to be really great DARPA program managers, and that really is our lifeblood. So I'm very appreciative for your support of that capability. Secondly, turning to the budget, again, your support in recent years has been critical to stabilizing our budget post-sequestration, and the President's budget request this year at $3 billion essentially continues that stabilization. It's essentially, in real terms, the same level as what was appropriated last year. Again, I'll ask for your support at the President's budget level request. And I don't have to tell you about sequestration. Mr. Chairman, you mentioned it in your opening remarks, but you know well that if we can't avert sequestration, it will take a significant toll in the work that we're doing. Let me just finish by saying that my comments today have focused on the challenges that face our nation today and into the future. All of us here at this table take those threats very seriously. At the same time, for us, we are very fortunate that our daily work is about solutions, and all of us come to work every day to find creative ways to rise above these dangers. And because of that, it is our responsibility, but also our privilege, to do this work of harnessing advanced, powerful technologies for our nation's security. So thanks again for the chance to be here with you. I'm happy to answer questions along with my colleagues.
Thank you, Dr. Prabhakar. And indeed, we've been joined by the ranking member. He got here within 14 seconds to the beginning of the hearing, Mr. James Langevin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I apologize for being a little bit late. I was actually off-site with Bloomberg News doing an interview and talking about one of our favorite topics, cybersecurity, and ran just a little bit behind. But I do want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing today. And, of course, I want to thank our witnesses for being here to discuss the Department of Defense's Science and Technology budget request for fiscal year 2016. And I appreciated hearing your testimony here this morning already. Maintaining the United States technological edge is a priority for the House Armed Services Committee, and most especially for this subcommittee. And I thank my partner and the leader in this effort, Chairman Wilson. As budgets grow smaller, we recognize the necessity of continuing a robust investment in S&T. The seeds of innovation that we plant with our investments today grow into the game-changing capabilities of tomorrow. Conversely, if we fail to properly invest, we will be dealing with the consequences for decades. Emerging technologies born of past and current investments like directed energy and other high-energy weapons have the potential to deliver paradigm-shifting capabilities to our warfighters that in many ways upend traditional warfighting concepts and trade-offs. And Secretary Schaefer and others, I appreciate you mentioning those capabilities today, particularly on directed energy. So these capabilities not only give us a warfighting advantage, but can serve as a deterrent to our adversaries. Today, we are engaged around the globe with enemies like Al-Qaeda and ISIL, its associate affiliates, and other terrorist groups. Our S&T investments over the last decade have been instrumental in delivering the capabilities our forces need to defeat such enemies and protect them from rudimentary yet effective weapons like improvised explosive devices. Other potential adversaries require different capabilities, some more suited to traditional warfare concepts, and others more for more unconventional warfare like cyber. Ensuring our investments align with requirements is key, and I look forward to continue to discuss and hear from the witnesses about the Department's approach to emerging challenges and new domains. In addition to investing in technology, we must invest in, of course, our workforce and our future workforce. Recruiting and retaining top talent for the Department's S&T community is truly a bedrock of maintaining technological superiority. Now, over the years, the Congress has provided the Department of Defense with many tools to do just that through IPA programs, internships, and other unique personnel opportunities. I know you each in your various ways are engaged in growing that workforce, and I appreciate those efforts. Also, crucially important to our technological superiority is ensuring that the Department has knowledge of the innovative work being done by entities other than large corporations typically associated with defense, and that it is able to transition that work to become new capabilities. Opportunities provided under the auspices of programs such as the Rapid Innovation Fund, of course, have proven to be a win-win for the Department, small businesses, labs, and our warfighters. As the witnesses are no doubt aware, the Rapid Innovation Fund program authorization will expire at the end of this fiscal year. And I am certainly committed to reauthorizing this program and would appreciate if the witnesses could provide their thoughts on the success of this program and examples for the record. With that, let me just again thank you all for the work that you're doing. I think that this subcommittee is one of the more interesting in Congress, and I know you all appreciate the work that you do and that of your workforce, and I hope you'll convey our appreciation to the people that you oversee. With that, Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you for again holding this hearing, and I yield back.
Thank you very much, Mr. Langevin. And we will now begin the 5-minute process, and Kevin Gates is going to be strict, including on me in particular, because we have votes any second. So we are always at the will of how the votes occur. I think it's very appropriate, Mr. Schaefer, that you actually began with military medicine. The American people need to know the survival rates that have been achieved, which are unprecedented in conflict. It was so inspiring to me visiting the theater field hospitals, visiting Landstuhl, visiting Bethesda, Walter Reed, and to see the survival and then the prosthetics that were developed so that young people who were injured had fulfilling lives, and to see people with injuries that are just utterly catastrophic by barbarians who, as cited by Jim, the improvised explosive devices, these were designed as unprecedented, I believe, ever, for the maximum personal injury of not just military but civilians, just a heinous enemy that we're facing. But the success, and so by beginning with that, was fantastic. We actually, with your help, we've made progress relative to the issue of defense sequestration. Initially, most people couldn't even pronounce the word sequestration. And then, but the good news is that particularly now the American people, I think, understand the threat of defense sequestration, where half of the sequestration is in one department, Department of Defense, and the effect that this has with the other budget cuts that have been implemented. But in fact, as an indication of success, and 2 months ago I wouldn't have thought this, but last night we had a vote on a budget that would actually substantially roll back sequestration. But the way that we've been successful is not just generically discussing the threat, but specifically. So if each one of you could identify a specific example of where sequestration will lead to a problem, and beginning with Mr. Schaefer.
Thank you very much, sir, and thank you for the vote last night. I think that there are two real issues with sequestration. First, with all the must-pay bills, as Dr. Carter noted, over half the cuts of sequestration would come from modernization accounts. Embedded in that are some of the things that you heard about today that would go away. So the Aerospace Innovation Initiative, which actually has two stools underneath it. This is a DARPA-led, for right now, DARPA Air Force Navy program that is designed to build the next generation prototype flying platform, and that's about all we can say about that. But also the next generation turbine engine that will give us 25 to 30% savings. Both of those projects will end. The real ripple effect is that with the reduction in procurement accounts and the reduction in our 6.4 and 6.5 accounts, engineers are being laid off. Once you lose the design engineers in the aerospace industry, in the turbine engine industry, they don't come back. So think about a Department of Defense with no significant long-term research project for the next generation of air capability. That's what sequestration means, sir.
And that certainly needs the morale effect. I can't even imagine. Ms. Miller.
I will echo what Mr. Schaefer said. Clearly, sequestration will impact yet again our modernization accounts. We are in a situation where we have to have force structure and operational readiness. We have to support our soldiers that are out there on the line, and we will. But what we sacrifice is those improvements to our existing capability, the restoral of the capabilities that are coming back out of theater now that we are committed to restoring so we can utilize. But I'll take you in another direction. We had a dramatic impact on our workforce with the last sequestration. And even the indications that we might do this again, we're already starting to see indications that our workforce, which has been under a considerable amount of strain and still doing what needs to be done to protect our soldiers, they're now looking at whether or not it's really worth staying. And so I expect that we will lose, again, some of our best and brightest engineers because they will either look for more security somewhere else, or frankly, we've got a large contingent that are close or eligible to retirement that will choose to do so without passing on that extreme knowledge that we need to pass down to our younger generations. We are currently still under a hiring limitation. It's a 1 for 6 for the Army. We can only hire 1 when we lose 6. That's a dramatic impact on our ability to make sure we keep the best and brightest available for meeting the needs of the Army. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I'll echo the workforce is definitely a critical area, but I won't just repeat that. I'll go towards a naval optic as we focus to our Pacific operating area. If our modernization accounts are reduced, those programs of record that are delivering naval capabilities for our Marines and our sailors are underpinned by our S&T investments of our technology maturation future naval capability efforts. Those naval capability efforts are ensuring that we maintain and expand our undersea domain supremacy, which is absolutely critical for that area of operations. Likewise, being able to ensure that we can have power ashore with our Marines enabled by those systems will all be at risk as those modernization accounts are reduced and the effectivity of our S&T investments to be able to bring long-range torpedo, underwater unmanned vehicle constellations, communication, over-the-horizon communication and targeting for at-range threats, being able to bring the ship connector capabilities with our Marines and our Navy vessels. They're all at risk, sir, and our S&T investments will not be able to enable that technological advantage. So coupled with the workforce degradation and our ability to do the true, I'll say, underwater and electromagnetic warfare efforts, that would be the biggest impact to the Department of the Navy. Thank you, sir.
Doctor.
Yeah, I want to echo on the workforce impact is the biggest impact that I see that will have a lasting effect if we go through a sequestration again. We're still feeling the impact of that today in our workforce from the previous sequestration we went through. As we go forward, the modernization counts will pay the brunt of this in the Air Force for the same reasons that my colleagues have already spoken of. On the S&T side, we're right now transitioning this engine technology out of S&T into a 6-4 program. That will be lost, losing that ability to bridge out of S&T, which we're trying to build. Furthermore, some of our programs, which are in the 6-3 level in S&T and high-powered microwaves and in advanced lasers on aircraft, will also suffer significantly if we go back into sequestration again.
Thank you for the specifics, and Dr. Prabhakar.
I'll mention 3 specifics. One thing we found a few years ago in sequestration is that at the end of our programs, when we were prepared to do flight demos or trials at sea, one of the big problems we had was that because of sequestration, those trials got delayed, and then the follow-on effect because of the way we work with the services at test ranges, et cetera, often that led to not only delays, but in fact overall increased costs, which was quite deleterious. Our workforce issue is very similar. For us, our people come only for 3 to 5 years, so it's somewhat of a retention issue, but really the bigger problem is trying to recruit people into this sort of tumultuous environment environment is not very helpful. And I think, to me, the most fundamental danger in this process, none of these specific cuts are the end of the world. The problem is that they just continue this erosion, this corrosion of our ability to do our mission. And a lot of our focus is to reach out to a very broad technical community, engage them in this important business of national security. When things like sequestration happen, it's such a negative message to people who don't already live in this world and whom we really need to attract to this mission.
Thank each of you, and we now proceed to Mr. Langevin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, thanks to all our witnesses for your testimony. So for the panel, the Rapid Innovation Program, which I spoke about in my opening statement, as you know, is authorized in Section 1073 of the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2011. The merit-based competitive program accelerates the fielding of technologies into military systems in support of requirements. And there are so many examples of successful projects, such as the Navy's Port Security Barrier Intrusion Detection System, which helped mitigate gaps in the system from being exploited. As I stated in my opening remarks, I'm championing reauthorization for the Rapid Innovation Program since it expires at the end of this fiscal year. Let me ask, in your opinion, has the program been valuable to the Department, and how so?
Yes, sir. Thank you. RIF has indeed been valuable. We held maybe a month ago, maybe 6 weeks. Time kind of blurs together. We held our annual review of the RIF program. And now we're far enough into it that we're starting to see the results. So we're getting about, on the whole, 60 to 70% transition rate. I think we're also getting to reach out and touch companies that might not otherwise want to work with the Department of Defense. And the program has been kind of transformed over the last 3 years, where it's jointly run by acquisition and S&T people. In fact, the funding is not in the S&T lines. It's in our 6-4 accounts, our Advanced Capability Development and Prototyping accounts. And we put it there specifically to bridge that gap of getting good new technologies into our acquisition programs of record, but using the intelligence and the smarts of our S&T community to manage and conduct the source selection. So I'm seeing very positive things from it. Mr. Kendall, my boss, has asked me for a recommendation, and depending upon where we end up with for funding targets for the year, we're going to try to fund it ourselves. Don't know if that will happen, but we're going to try.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Within the Army, I would say that we are finding RIF is an added flexibility that we might not otherwise have. As Mr. Schaefer mentioned, it allows us to reach those industries that we might never have otherwise engaged or been able to engage because, you know, we're kind of the big Army and looking for big things. But some of the efforts that we put out there, we kind of laid out to industry what our problems were, and we've got some interesting approaches on how to solve them. And I'll give you 2 examples of success. We had a small company that looked at a problem that we had with our FMTV systems. We were up-armoring the cabs of our FMTV, and that's a good thing, protecting the soldiers. However, over time, the doors on the FMTV started to sag, and we were causing damage to the added weight on the cab frame. So we put out a problem and got a response through the RIF process that gave us a cab stiffening assembly that passed all of our tests so far. We have now transitioned it to the PM for FMTV. He's undergoing testing to see whether that will now become part of his program of record to retrofit onto those existing FMTVs that have up-armored cabs. And that was on the order of about a $2.5 million investment from us in the RIF, and well worth it. Another quick example is a handheld pocket-sized quantitative electroencephalogram. It's essentially this weird-looking thing that slips over your head, and you can use it in the far-forward theater. What it is helping us to do is provide an objective assessment on neurological injury. So this is kind of the far-forward idea. Did we get some sort of mild traumatic brain injury? Is there something that would warrant our soldier now getting a more rigorous look by a medic? Something that we need to know to make sure that we have provided appropriate health care for the soldier in the far-forward environment. Just 2 examples, sir.
Great examples. Thank you. Admiral?
Sir, I'll echo, RIF is very value-added, and as a previous program manager, the flexibility of not just having resource, but having a resource that allows you to go tackle those design issues that you would otherwise wait at a future spiral, allows you to pull in capability sooner to your warfighter. Examples like our Navy high-energy chiller that allowed us to identify a smaller size and weight and footprint to be able to cool our high-energy avionics electronics on ships. That small investment of couple $100,000 will show huge dividends downrange for the recurring costs for all of our ships. And the ability of the program manager to reach out to small business, and 90% of our engagement in RIF for the Department of Navy is with small business. And that's a tenet from Mr. Stackley on down to engage with that small business base. Things such as our verification and validation capabilities. Right now we have to put things on jets, go out and check and see if they fit in the aerodynamic environment. We populate those aircraft with very expensive verification and validation instrumentation suites. We gave that challenge to a small business. They came back with a USB-sized stick, solid-state, vibratory, wireless verification and validation capability that for about $300,000, we're saving $5 million a year. So that kind of innovative thinking that's facilitated by very small investment from a RIF perspective, giving not only program managers but small industry the flexibility and the opportunity. I think we need to continue this program. Thank you.
Very valuable. Thank you.
Yeah, the RIF has been very useful to the Air Force as well, particularly in bringing in new and innovative businesses to solve problems that we didn't have a solution for. So far, we've had over 2,600 white papers that have been submitted to our calls. We've put out about 94 projects out of these papers, selecting the best and most promising ones. And what it's allowed us to do is to really reach out to non-traditional small business as well as our traditional SIBRs and SITRs participants, and help transition technologies into programs of record to solve problems that are annoying problems, but had not risen to the level that they were actually going after them with their large acquisition program. The F-35 has been the recipient of several great ideas that have allowed them to reduce costs or fix problems on the production line that, as I say, are annoyances, but once you do it, you realize that this is a much better way to solve the problem. And the leveraging for a small investment, investing millions to get savings in the hundreds of millions has been really valuable. So we really do like the program. As it's been said, we've moved this to be an acquisition program with lab support, and look forward to continuing with it.
Thank you. Okay. Nothing for you, Dr. Preble? Okay.
DARPA's not involved in this program. It's a services program.
Very good. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch. We now proceed to Congressman Rich Nugent of Florida.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thought maybe it'd be Mr. Franks first, but that's okay. It's in order? Okay. This is a question, this committee and the larger committee last year in the 113th Congress appropriated $220 million for the sole purpose of accelerating the development of a domestic rocket propulsion system. However, thus far, neither the Air Force nor the Department of Defense has moved expeditiously to accomplish the task. And since passage of last year's Appropriations Act, I specifically want to know, what has the Air Force done with the Advanced Liquid Rocket Booster Engine to replace the RD-180?
I'll have to take that for the record, sir, as far as the acquisition program does not fall under my purview. However, under the S&T program, which we are continuing, we've been working the component technologies that are required to enable that type of capability in the future. Have had a strong program over the past decade that will allow us then to move into an oxygen-rich liquid rocket in the future. So the investments we made in the past and the investments we're continuing in this year's budget are really focused on giving us the capability to go to the next generation of liquid rocket engines.
Well, I appreciate that, and certainly look forward to your response outside of the committee, obviously. But, you know, it was very important to this committee that we get away from the Russian engine, where we shouldn't be relying upon that technology in particular. But the next question then is on directed energy. And I know the chairman and ranking member are very invested in directed energy. Last year, Congress directed the Air Force to deliver a CHAMP system on surplus cruise missiles, and Congress set aside $10 million just for the purpose of getting the technology out of the lab into our warfighters. We've had numerous combatant commanders testify to the fact that CHAMP would be an excellent addition to their inventory, and particularly since what we're recommending is obviously, and I understand where the Air Force is at, they would like to see a long-term solution to that problem in regards to a delivery vehicle and maybe some additional upgrades. But, you know, we just met with the lab and folks that, we've tested this particular item. We have surplus cruise missiles that were deactivated from the nuclear force that at least would get that technology out to our combatant commanders in a very short period of time. We've proven that it works. They've upgraded it actually from the lab as a bridge to when we get this reusable delivery vehicle, or maybe something that we really want to have 10 years out, but gives a bridge right now for, you know, a fraction of the cost to at least get it out to the combatant commanders. To us, you know, S&T is so important, but we also have to be able to provide it out into the field, and whether it's, you know, 80%, 90%, or 100%, the issue is, you know, if it's at least feelable to assist those combatant commanders, then we ought to be doing it. And so we're really concerned, I am in particular, in regards to that. We're not, excuse me, that we're not actually following through when we have the ability to. Do you have an answer for me?
At this point in time, the Air Force is still looking at the technology and where the right point is to transition it. That said, from the science and technology perspective, we're looking at how do we continue to improve the capability. So we're leveraging the $10 million that you provided to, one, take the things that we saw in the demonstration with the Calcum size system, and to improve on those so that if we did decide to go with a program with the current system, we would be able to make a better system. In addition,
I don't disagree with that. I mean, I think that we have the ability to do multiple things at a time, and one is if you can field it and get it out to combatant commands, particularly with the nation-state threats that we face today with Russia and China, I would think it would be to our benefit to take advantage of at least the technology we have today. We can absolutely continue to do the research and development to improve it, but I also know within that short period of time we've also already made an improvement to the original CHAMP that was tested. So there are some great avenues. I would really like to see the Air Force work on that technology, get it out to the warfighter. Those that have testified in front of the main committee that said that they would welcome that technology to have in their toolkit to protect America. And I know you want to do that. And I understand all the competing interests within the Air Force, but I would, you know, to the Air Force, I would suggest that we absolutely, in a cost-effective manner, at least roll it out so our combatant commanders have the use of CHAMP in the future, because we don't know what our next crisis is going to be. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate your time, and Dr. Walker, if you could get back to me on both of those issues, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Sheriff Nugent, and we appreciate your passion as a dad of service members, so that you can tell why he's into this, and so we're so grateful. We have Congressman Aguilar of California.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the hearing and the opportunity to hear the discussion and the testimony. My first question had to do with sequestration, but I think that's been tackled by the ranking member and the chairman quite well, and I appreciate your honesty and also the specifics that you've offered on programs that could face possible reductions. I think that's very helpful for us moving forward. Dr. Prabhakar, can you tell me how that's pronounced first? That's my first question.
Prabhakar is great.
Prabhakar. Can you talk a little bit about managing risk and taking chances? Often government is risk averse and safe, but DARPA seeks to engage, measure, and to create new capabilities. Can you talk about how you foster that within your department and what possible tools that you need in order to continue that mission?
Taking risk ends up being core to executing on our mission. We don't love risk. We actually like to try to beat it down and kill it off, but we need to be able to tackle it simply because we come to work to do the things that are going to have a huge impact. And I always tell my program managers, if you have a high impact idea that doesn't involve taking a lot of risk, let's do it, because that's really the business we're in. But often, of course, as soon as you do those, you have to move into the technologies that have a lot more risk if you're really going to reach for these kinds of dramatic changes in capability. So it's part and parcel of our mission, and very much to the nature of your question, I think it's essential for us as an organization to nurture the culture about being fearless about taking risk, but then structuring programs to kill it off, to build these technologies to a point that they are no longer risky, that they really can show their value so that they can be adopted and actually get in the hands of warfighters and make a difference. So how does that actually happen in practice? It happens in the way, in particular, that we structure our programs. Our program managers may define a very aggressive goal. Maybe it's a new way to launch satellites on orbit on a 24-hour notice, or maybe it's a way to build a fire break to stop infectious disease. It could be whatever the DARPA program is. But with that ambitious goal, the program is structured with very carefully thought out milestones along the way to tell us if we're on track, are we making progress, and that allows our program managers to stop the projects that aren't working, redirect the efforts to more fruitful areas. When we see something that is working, it allows us to put more resource and move faster in that area. And that kind of very hands-on structured program is how we try to make that journey from high risk to actually achieving the impact.
Additional tools that you think might be necessary moving forward that can maintain that culture?
The tools that this committee has already helped us with, I think, are critically essential. Number one, bringing in people from all different parts of the technical community, not just those who already live in the DOD S&T world, but people who come with backgrounds in commercial companies or having done startups or people out of universities. Those different perspectives are very helpful. Our ability to contract with entities that aren't normally in the business of doing business with the federal government through other transactions authority. That's another way that allows us to reach farther in terms of technology and get access to some of these bleeding edge technologies. So I think a lot of the critical pieces are in place. I'll tell you the single most important thing to allow us to keep taking risk is when we fail and when our projects don't work, we try to acknowledge that and say, yeah, that didn't work, we stopped it, now we're going to move on to something more productive. And I think when you're allowing us to fail so that we can keep going and take that next step is actually the most important.
We need to be able to embrace that occasionally as well. So thank you very much. I'll yield back, Mr. Chairman, so someone else can get a question.
Thank you very much. And in consultation with the ranking member, what we'd like to do is Mr. Franks and Ms. Stefanik, if each of you could ask a question, and then they could get back for the record.
All right. Mr. Schaefer, I guess I'll start with you, and I thank you again for your great service. What do you think the earliest we will be able to find an operational laser or high-powered microwave weapon, and especially as it relates to the laser and missile defense? And what additional resources would you need to either accelerate the development or to mitigate or down the technical risk?
And you can get back for the record, and because we're in the midst of voting. And so, hey, thank you so much, Congressman Franks and Ms. Stefanik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is for Ms. Miller. I represent the Army's 10th Mountain Division based at Fort Drum, and this division, as you know, has continuously served in Afghanistan from 9/11 until today. Would you be able to discuss how the Army S&T enterprise is being utilized for the current mission in Afghanistan, and particularly in terms of the drawdown? Thank you.
And thank you very much, Ms. Stefanik. We have one final question from Mr. Langevin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and again, thanks to our panel for the discussion this morning. So again, if you could get back to me on the record this, given the fact that time is tight. I was pleased to see Deputy Secretary Work's memo of March 17th creating the Electronic Warfare Executive Committee, largely in response to the Defense Science Board's EW study, which pointed to lost focus on EW, particularly at the merge points of EW and cyber. So I couldn't agree more with the need for more focus on these issues and the need for a strong, intellectually vibrant and technologically superior electronic warfare community. How do each of you see the creation of this organization changing how you conduct your business? Obviously, with our adversaries using asymmetric threats and technologies and weapons to a greater extent than ever before that could overcome our both technological and numeric advantage, and even neutralizing it, we obviously need to focus more on our EW and cyber capabilities to neutralize those asymmetric threats. So I'd like to hear your comments on that question. Thank you all, and Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
And thank you very much, Mr. Langevin. And indeed, as you can hear the bells and whistles, we're in the process of voting. But thank you for being here, and you've received the request for the final questions, and we appreciate, again, very much your service, and we look forward to working with you in the future, and we wish Mr. Schaefer the best in his future career. God bless. We are adjourned.